Now, my slides are a little bit more different and my presentation has a little bit of a different angle today. So I'll be talking about kind of my little journey, the stuff I've been working on, kind of what you could potentially be working on if you take control of your career. And I'm also going to cover off kind of how to get your foot in the door, what different careers you could take out of cybersecurity, and just little bits of advice as well, just kind of like on the ground running for people who are here. So I've had some experience working across the big 4 banks, big 4 consulting firms, smaller companies as well. So I've worked at a small high frequency trading firm as an example, which you probably wouldn't pick with me. I've got so much different history, Carissa. I've done a vast variety of things. I've had experience in internal audit, IT audit, even financial audit, which was weird because I don't even have a finance background. So that was a bit odd for me to do. And risk management, IT apps engineering, and a little bit of development while I was doing that, some implementing of and monitoring of controls as well, BCP, DR, social engineering, whole bunch of stuff. So, this is what happens when you kind of take control of your career, and, because if you don't drive it, no one else is going to drive it for you, which I'll be talking about today and what Carissa and Shannon also covered in their presentations. All right, now I just want a couple of questions just for you guys to put your hands up in the room so I can have an idea of who we've got here and what they're kind of trying to get out of this. So who currently works in cybersecurity? Okay, all right. And who's looking for opportunities in cybersecurity? You gotta put your hand out, mate. All right, cool, okay. And who's kind of sitting on the fence, don't know if I want to jump in because I'm scared or not sure, I don't know enough about it, don't know what I want to do in cybersecurity? 1, 2, really? Okay, all right, okay, cool. All right, now I'm going to put a couple of images up which I think kind of represents what the general public and general people working even in a professional environment see and feel and think about cybersecurity professionals. Now, I want you to have a look at them and kind of think about, when you see these, what do you think? Is yeah, it's KB on the daily, mate. So generally, when you yeah, in presentations, yeah. Generally, when you talk to people about cybersec and you ask them about cybersecurity, their first kind of image that comes in their mind is that person in a hoodie sitting in the back of a room, in a dungeon, in the attic, downstairs, in a dark room, no windows, and you're just coding away. Let me tell you, it's not like that at all. Now, we're trying to change this image of what we have on ourselves in the industry and in the wider known, I guess, professional environment and general public. Generally, you'll see media and news, kind of the general, Channel 7 and all that crap, kind of cover this stuff, and they're like, oh, the hackers sitting with their hoodies on and just hacking away in their rooms. We want to change this, and especially with the next generation of females, males, kids that are coming up through school. We really want to encourage them to look at STEM in general, not just IT, not just coding and hacking and all of that kind of stuff. We want to encourage them to take the opportunity and take that step into even just looking into what STEM has to offer. So we want to change this to be you can be a professional, wear a suit or dress cash, which normally I don't dress like this when I go to work. I'm normally quite cash, but today I thought I'd step it up a little bit. I'm in all black, which is generally kind of what I wear, which kind of resonates with that, but not really. But yes, sometimes I do dress up, sometimes I don't. It just really depends on the clients I'm working on, and depending on obviously the kind of people in the room that I'm talking to as well. So being able to adapt the way I am, the way I talk, and the way I look to then suit the environment, which kind of comes down to also working in cybersecurity. Because when you're talking to the business, when you're talking to the board and senior management, you need to adapt your style. It's all about adapting. You're almost like a chameleon. You need to change your colors. You need to talk the talk it in a way that they will understand. Don't use technical jargon. Don't use things that you know that they won't understand just to intimidate them. You need to make sure that they understand and you're getting your message across clearly, because that in return will help you get the funding you need for your cybersecurity programs, will help you improve your controls where you have weaknesses, and when you get those pen testing results or other results, you're doing the red teaming stuff, it'll help you get the goal that you want to get in 12 months or 18 months' time. So I touched on this a little bit, but just to go into it a bit more, so you want to encourage your children, you want to encourage your nephews, your nieces, any brothers, sisters, or even family friends that you know to study STEM or even look into it. A lot of the universities and a lot of the high schools now have camps in place. And I know this because I've done a few talks at some of the universities to STEM camps, particularly for girls and high school students who are thinking about potentially going into STEM. And let me tell you, they're actually pretty cool. The stuff that they get to do is amazing. Like, they get to go into different companies, they get to see and live the life of what that engineer might be doing that day. They actually get to see the live thing, like them building something, coding something, testing something, walk around sites and plants, etc. So it's actually pretty cool what they get to do now. Let me tell you, when I was at school, which is probably majority case of everyone here, we didn't have that. We didn't have that opportunity to see what that world had. So when we were picking our subjects for the HSC, and when we were picking what courses we wanted to apply to at which unis, we didn't have that insight. So we didn't know what we wanted to pick. So naturally, you were probably steering away from the STEM because it was such an unknown. And in high school, you don't really cover those subjects either. So you just have no idea, other than mathematics, really, and maybe physics. That's about it. All right, so I didn't know what to call this slide: elements, components, subjects, matters, whatever. Different areas of cybersecurity. There are so many different elements in cybersecurity. It's not all about knowing how to code. It's not all about knowing how to pen test, how to be a red teamer, all of that. There is so much more to it, so much depth. You know, just like Carissa said with the iceberg thing, which is kind of like when you're working hard and you're a business owner and all that, it's kind of the same thing. People only see the surface saying, yeah, you're a hacker, you're a pen tester, or whatever. They don't see the depth of how deep that goes into the organization. You have risk management, you have compliance, you've got your BCP and DRs kicks into it with your data breach response plan, your comms plan. How are you going to handle it if something was to happen? If a security incident happened, how would your board handle it, or your crisis management team handle it, for example? A lot of my clients didn't know how to handle these types of incidents. So when we ran these types of exercises where we put this scenario in front of them, they really struggled the first time. But the second time and the third time, they did so much better. They amended their plans and built that relationship between all three plans, so they feel more comfortable now when they're dealing with these types of issues. So you've got things like internal audit. Forensics is a very interesting one as well for those who have more of a psychology background. I've had a few people come up to me to ask me around, they're psychologists, they got that background, but they don't know how to utilize that skill and they want to get into cybersecurity. Well, let me tell you, forensics is the best way to get your foot in the door. You know how a criminal's mind works. A criminal could be potentially it could be a cybersecurity incident. That's what criminals do. They want to get in, they want to steal stuff. Just how you have a house, you have robbers that want to come in, you implement controls, and you want to understand how that criminal's mind works. So the psychologist can play a role there. You can work in the police force, you can work for the federal police, you can work with law firms, you can even work with other larger company sizes as well, just to understand how those criminals' minds work. So there's so much more. It's not just about pen testing and red teaming. There's heaps of stuff you can do, especially in legal and even third-party vendor management. All right, this leads into the next slide around specific careers that you could potentially do and kind of what jobs you could look into if you wanted to ever apply for different types of roles. Obviously the CISO, which is the top one, Chief Information Security Officer, you need quite a bit of experience and probably some executive management experience as well, and kind of work your way to that level if that's what you want to do. What a lot of smaller companies are doing now though is looking at CISO as a service. So they're looking at consulting companies and people who are working as independents to come in and just contract as a CISO as a service, because they don't have the capacity, they don't have the money to invest in to pay a CISO, because normally, as we know, they're six-figure salaries, probably 200, 300K plus. You've got pen testers, you've got consultants, which can be both on the technical and the non-technical side, depending on what you want to do. And that actually is probably a very good area to work in, because you get so much variety of work experience. You learn so much, and also you can work for yourself and contract, because that's such a good thing with flexibility. You actually have the control to pick and choose what you want to work on. There's risk management, so cyber risk management, obviously that's a massive component. You've got compliance with things like the regulations in place, as you may have heard of GDPR. You've got CPS 234 with APRA, which everyone needs to be compliant with by 30th of June this year. You've got project management, which is a big one, because you've got secure by design, privacy by design. So you want to be thinking about security right from the start before you actually kick off a project. So that's a very good area to get into as well. A lot of projects fail because they have security flaws. You've got cryptographers, IT security engineers, security architect, incident responder, which is also a good one, forensics expert, as I went through, IT cyber lawyer, and sales. So you could get your foot in the door really with any of these types of roles, and there's so many more than this out there. It's all about thinking about your current skill set and to be able to turn it and twist it into a way that will get your foot in the door into cybersecurity. I'm sure everyone here has probably touched on one or more of these areas or has some sort of experience. You would all in risk management. Everybody does this in their job on the day. Operational risk management. When you're doing something at work, you're thinking about the risk. Even if you're not consciously thinking about it, it's in the back of your head as you're clicking on things, doing things, sending emails, signing contracts, doing whatever you're doing on the daily. Good one. See, I'm smart like that. All right, so touching on a few things that both Carissa and Shannon touched on earlier in their presentations. You need to have passion. I think in this industry, if you don't have passion, you won't get anywhere. People see through that so quickly. Even if you have no experience in cybersecurity, but you have that passion and the drive, and you want to learn to do something, people will see that as an opportunity and they will take you on. They will coach you because they're looking for people who are coachable. You should always be coachable. That doesn't mean that, you're just a grad and you're learning everything from day one, but there's nothing wrong with that. You should be comfortable with doing things that is not a senior manager level, and maybe you're doing things at a grad level or a vacationer level or whatever it is. You should be comfortable with doing those things because you're learning everything from when things enter the door all the way through to the end of their life cycle. And that's what cybersecurity is about. You need to understand how things are coming in, going out, where you're putting it, how you're storing it, where it's stored, who's looking after what, where there's open doors, where there's closed doors, can we get in through that closed door, all of that stuff. It's all about watching people, looking at their behaviours, all of that. Don't be afraid to ask questions. This is something I wish a lot of my clients ask more of. Ask more questions. Ask dumb questions. Doesn't matter, you're paying me to be here, like $300 an hour. You should be asking every single question you want to ask me. Don't be afraid. So even if you're in a job and you don't know, just genuinely ask the question because someone will explain it to you. And there's nothing wrong with not knowing everything. You shouldn't be expected to know everything. Learning and developing your skills. This comes down to building your information base, which Shannon touched on earlier as well. Make sure you're reading books that are relevant to where you want to be, reading books that are relevant to the industry, reading articles, reading papers which have opinions in it, watching videos, doing as much as you can in that space and being a sponge, just soaking it all in. So then when people ask you questions, you can provide an opinion. you actually know what they're talking about and you can answer the questions. I think most of all as well is networking, coming to these events, networking, but then not stopping there. Once you come here, you're talking to all these people, you're talking to us, you're talking to the recruiters. Don't just stop there. It's not just about connecting on LinkedIn. Job done. I know this person now, all good. You need to maintain that relationship, nurture that relationship, because if you don't, you never know when you're going to need that person down the track. They might work somewhere or be in a position that you want to be in, so you can ask them for advice. Go out for coffees. Have a catch-up via LinkedIn through messaging or WhatsApp or however you want to do it if you're not in the same city. There are so many ways. And being nice, like what Shannon said. Just be nice. Niceness goes a long way. Being kind goes a long way. And that's how you manage relationships. Be kind. Do things for each other. Seek advice and give advice. Most of all though, be genuine, be yourself, and have a great attitude towards everything. Don't look at things like, that's not my job, I'm not going to do that. I don't get paid for that, it's above my pay level. No. If that's how you think, then you shouldn't be in this industry. So just coming up to the tail end of my presentation now, just wanted to share like a couple of projects I've been involved in for the last couple of years. Everything from running, cybersecurity incident response exercises, from tabletops and actual like real kind of simulation exercises, exercising the data breach response plans, testing IT DRPs, which is closely linked to that one, enhancing cyber risk frameworks, so looking at your risks and your controls, the control frameworks, where your weaknesses are, which is very much closely aligned with CPS 234, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard about. Running awareness training, because I think awareness is very important in this industry. You can't expect everyone to just know not to click this link, not to open this, not to do that, or be aware of this and that. You really need to train people and make them aware. You'd be surprised at how many people you think have common sense in this stuff that don't. Let me tell you, majority don't. Every time I run phishing simulations, so many people click on it, and the people you least expect to click on it, click on it. IT, the executives, like, really? You know what I mean? So you need to give the training. And compliance with various regulations I've done. I've read several of them inside and out and still don't understand half the words. They're so vague. I do information security officer positions as well, which opens my eyes to a lot more in most of my clients' organisations, and also third-party vendor contract negotiations, which I've been heavily involved with at the moment, which is a very interesting space. It's a bit scary dealing with lawyers, ain't gonna lie, but it's very interesting, and I have to say it's probably one of the biggest things I'm doing at the moment is just looking at the clauses, looking at the wording of the sentences and the structure of everything. And yeah, this is kind of what I've been doing in the last, I say, 12 months. And just wanted to leave with a quick quote by Sabrina Bryan. You can do anything as long as you have the passion, drive, focus, and support. Your support network is huge. Make sure you always have a few people around you who have got your back, who will always give you honest advice, tell you when you're doing wrong, and really praise you when you're doing right. But yeah, that's it, guys. Thank you.